Good afternoon, everyone. It's Adele Newton, the Executive Director of CSCAN InfoCan, and I want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon for our presentation from our colleagues at NSERC. So we have with us Kevin Lapointe and Jean-Marc David, who are going to give a presentation which will last about a half an hour, and then there'll be time for question and answer. We are recording this, and we'll put it up on our website afterwards for those of you, those of your colleagues who aren't able to attend, or those of you, I know some of you might have to leave a bit early. So I'm going to turn it over right away to our NSERC colleagues. I see Sylvain has also joined us from NSERC, but the presentations will be by Jean-Marc and Kevin. So over to you, gentlemen.
So thank you all very much. I must say I'm really happy and excited to be here to be able to speak with all of you. Unfortunately, I noticed with this setup, I don't get to see your screens. But looking at the participant list, I did notice quite a few familiar names, so former committee members from the past and some current ones as well. So I'm happy to see that you're involved in this presentation as well. So as Adele mentioned, my name is Kevin Lapointe. I'm the team leader for the physics and computer science evaluation groups at NSERC. I'm relatively new to this position, but I'm not new to NSERC, having been around for many years. The presentation, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Jean-Marc David, who'll be leading the presentation. So he's the program officer responsible for the computer science evaluation group. And on the call as well is a colleague of ours from our research partnerships division, so Sylvain Langlois. I'm aware that many of you are probably very interested in the Alliance program. For your information, this presentation deck doesn't focus on that, given that there are other presentations taking place, and Sylvain has a session scheduled with all of you in the new year to discuss specifically on the Alliance program. So our focus here is a little different. So on that note, again, thank you, Adele, for organizing this. I'm happy to be here and look forward to any questions you might have. And at this point, I guess I could turn the floor over to my colleague, Jean-Marc.
Okay, so hi, everybody. Thanks for showing up. Glad to be here today. So today, as Kevin mentioned, we won't be focusing on Alliance, but what we will be talking about is, first of all, some of the results from the last competition, the competition year 2020 Discovery Grant. We'll be talking about some new news for this year for the Discovery Grant, as well as some general NSERC updates, as well we'll be talking a bit about what NSERC has done with regards to COVID. Okay, so jumping right into it, the 2020 competition year Discovery Grant results. So first of all, peer review is essential to uphold NSERC's program, and this is what we do best, but it's because of each person that agrees to help us in peer review that we're able to do this. So for administrators, we appreciate your support to these efforts to support peer participation in things like teaching release for EG members who spend hours and weeks for DG review. In science review, there was a mention that the community is happy with NSERC, so our success depends on you. We thank you for that. This past competition, we had 3,372 applications. There were 434 members involved in the evaluation groups. The stats you see here, they don't include subatomic physics, just to be clear about that. And some external reviewers also provided more than one report. So there were slightly less external reviewers than the 9,300 mentioned there. But this does represent a significant commitment of member time and efforts. It's about 2 months of work and an intensive 1-week review period. So it's important to support their efforts, the members' efforts, that is, in these endeavors. So thank you for that. Okay, so funding for Discovery is increasing. NSERC's received new funds for the Discovery Grant in 2014, 2016, and 2018. These new funds have led to increases in the annual competition budget for the Discovery Grant, and also to increases in the average grant levels. We are aiming to keep these levels stable over time. And you'll notice, starting in 2018, to provide additional support for early career researchers, the Discovery Launch Supplement was created. With this, early career researchers receive an additional $12,500 in the first year of their award. So in the budget in 2018, the government proposed to invest $925 million over 5 years, starting in 2018-19, and $235 million per year ongoing. So of that, NSERC would be getting $354.7 million over 5 years, with $90.1 million ongoing. So that's ramping up from $44 million per year to the $90.1 million per year starting this next fiscal year, 21-22. Okay, so now on to some general results. So here's the overall distribution of the merit indicator ratings, that is for all 12 evaluation groups in the last competition. It's exactly as we expected to see. You see a nice bell curve here. Here, let me turn on my laser pointer. So yeah, nice bell curve that we see, centered on strong for the excellence of the researcher in red, and the merit of the proposal, in blue, and a slight lean towards the right for the training for highly qualified personnel in yellow, which is as you expect to see with more early career researchers receiving moderate on that. So as for the computer science evaluation group, the merit indicator distribution looks very similar to the overall distribution. We see the same characteristics in the previous graph. So that's good to see, no surprise there. Taking a look at the applicant categories, the results here are in line with previous competitions across all categories, with an overall success rate of 66%. And just to note that established researchers not holding a grant includes new established researchers, as well as returning unsuccessful established researchers. So looking at the merit indicator distribution, the quality bin distribution is very similar to the merit indicator distribution. The quality bin distribution that we see here is very typical. The most common bin ended up being bin J, which equates to a strong score. And the most common bin for early career researchers was bin K, which is a strong moderate, that moderate being in contributions to the training of highly qualified personnel. 1507, computer science, also had an overall success rate of 66%, which was the same for the overall in the last competition. Early career researchers did a bit better than the overall at 67% compared to 61% overall. And established researchers were fairly close to the overall level, which was 67%, and we had them at 66%. So quality bin distribution as well was very similar to the overall distribution. So we're quite right in line with the overall. So this figure shows the percentage of applicants by gender, broken up into women, men, and other categories for each evaluation group. So NSERC is committed to monitoring success rates and average grant amounts by gender. Applicants may self-identify by gender, or they may select "I prefer not to answer" when they apply. This information is used for statistical purposes only. It's not shared with reviewers. So it should be noted here that approximately 20% of applicants overall are women. In computer science, we were slightly below that at around 18%. So this data is taken from the self-identification section of the applications. And just to clarify, other categories includes gender fluid, binary, and/or two-spirit, as well as those who selected "I prefer not to answer." For ATIP reasons, these groups were combined under the heading of other categories. These categories contain less than 5 applications when broken down by award status, which could make individuals within those categories identifiable. So taking a look at the success rates, the success rate between men and women early career researchers were near parity. The other categories were about 10% lower at 52%, but this is also a smaller sample size in that category, which makes it more volatile as a percentage. Among established researchers, women and other categories outperformed men by approximately 5%. Okay, so taking a look at some of the supplements now. So the Research Tools and Instruments supplement foster and enhance the discovery, innovation, and training capability of university researchers in the natural sciences and engineering by supporting the purchase of research equipment. So in 2020, RTI received 893 applications, of which 248 were funded. So this resulted in a success rate of 28% and a funding rate of 29%. Just to clarify that, the success rate is based on the number of applications submitted. So it's the total awarded over the total submitted, while the funding rate is based on the amount of funds awarded. So it's the total amount awarded over the total amount requested. And since lifting the quota for universities in 2018, there has been a large increase in application pressure for the past two competitions. And without a substantial increase to the RTI budget, and with such an increase in the number of applications, it's understandable that the success rate is lower than in the years where the quota system was in place. But we do see a marked increase in both success rate and funding rate compared to 2018 and 2019. So that's good to see. In the Computer Science, Math, and Stats Selection Committee for RTI, 25 applications were received, of which 7 were funded. So this resulted in a success rate of 28% and a funding rate of 31.2%, very close to, but slightly above the overall statistics. The Discovery Accelerator Supplement provides substantial and timely resources to researchers who have a superior research program that's highly rated in terms of originality and innovation, and who show strong potential to become international leaders within their field. So these additional resources should enable a researcher with an established research program to capitalize on an opportunity or a bold idea, which could be a recent research breakthrough, a paradigm shift, or a new strategy to tackle a scientific problem or research question. So DAS awardees receive $40,000 a year for 3 years. It's for a total of $120,000, but they are able to use it over the amount of the length of their discovery grant. So that's the 5 years plus the automatic 1-year extension. In the 2020 competition, 127 awards were distributed of the 130 available based on the eligible pool recommended to NSERC. Of these, 17 were awarded to computer science, to applicants in computer science. For the overall statistics, 23 of the awards were awarded to early career researchers, and 59 were awarded to researchers who were 12 years or less from their PhD, 53 to researchers who were between 13 and 20 years from their PhD, and 15 were awarded to researchers who were 20 years or more from their PhD. So this count of years from the PhD is a rough gauge used by NSERC for career stage, since we don't have a formal definition for it. Okay, and the Discovery Development Grant is one that provides resources to researchers from small universities whose DG applications were deemed to be of appropriate quality to merit research support, but were not funded in the DG competition. So no separate application is required for this supplement. NSERC selects recipients based on the results of the evaluation of discovery grant applications. Each award is valued at $30,000 over 2 years, $15,000 annually, and provides recipients with resources to build their research program. So in the 2020 competition, 47 awards were offered to applicants from small universities. 3 of those declined, so 44 awards were accepted. You will notice an increase in the number of awards in this past competition. This increase is the result of the change in the eligibility criteria for the Discovery Development Grant. Researchers can now hold a Discovery Development Grant twice in their career instead of only once, which meant more researchers were eligible to receive the award this year. So for more information on the Discovery Grant and other research grant results, the 2020 competition statistics package is available on our website if you haven't seen it already. So I suggest you take a look if you're interested. And if you have any questions about the data, you can contact resgrant@nserc-crsng.gc.ca. Okay, so now on to some discovery news for the next competition. So as you probably already know, the Discovery Grant peer review meetings will be taking place virtually this year. We are committed to maintaining the same high quality standards present in other years, and we have and are consulting with other funding agencies who've performed virtual peer review processes to learn of the best practices. NSERC is gracious of the hard work and the time that evaluation group members have put in so far to ensure that our competitions are a success. So some new changes for this year. First of all, the early career researcher definition was changed this year, such that all eligible delays in research are doubled when calculating candidate status. For example, a 7-month parental leave would be credited as 14 months when determining the ECR eligibility window. Additionally, this year, COVID-19 related delays will be considered as eligible. Further, applicants who report eligible delays this year will be able to include contributions to research and training from beyond the last 6 years for a period equivalent to the duration of the leave. So these contributions must be from the active period immediately prior to the 6-year window. Applicants can include these contributions in a new 2-page leave of absence attachment, as well as the past contributions to the training of HQP section, the most significant contributions to training section, or their samples of research contributions. So in recognizing that COVID-19 pandemic affects researchers and students' capacity to conduct their research, we've developed general guidelines for the consideration of COVID-19 related impacts on research. This can be used by both applicants to better understand how to describe these impacts in an application, as well as by evaluation group members to better understand how to consider these impacts when reviewing applications. These guidelines are available on our website if you're interested. Okay, and on to some general NSERC updates. So last October, Dr. Alejandro Adam joined NSERC as our new president. He's a highly accomplished researcher in mathematics, a faculty member at the University of British Columbia, and was formerly the CEO and scientific director of MITAX. So we are excited to have him join us. An evaluation of the Discovery Research Program was completed last year. This is done every 5 years, and NSERC is pleased to release the Discovery Research Evaluation Report summarizing the evaluation's findings and recommendations, as well as the Management Action Plan, providing NSERC's response to the recommendations. These documents are available on our website. The evaluation assessed issues related to the relevance, effectiveness, and efficiency of the program in order to comply with the Treasury Board's policy on results and to meet the information requirements of NSERC's senior management. So the main evaluation conclusions were that the Discovery Research Program is a central component of Canada's research funding ecosystem, as well as that the Discovery Research Program has a well-established record of providing Canadian researchers in the fields of natural sciences and engineering the opportunity to undertake curiosity-driven long-term research programs with the required flexibility to pursue promising research avenues. So the following recommendations are detailed in the report. First, considering its fundamental role and positioning in the ecosystem of research funding in Canada, NSERC should maintain the Discovery Research Program with the goal of ensuring its sustainability and its continued adaptability to emerging dynamics in the fields of natural sciences and engineering. Good news for us. 2, NSERC should explain the rationale for funding differences across disciplines, providing a clear description of the Discovery Grant funding levels and how they are established. This would reflect NSERC's commitment to ensuring a transparent management of the program. It would also allow researchers to be adequately informed at the time of their application, and it would provide them with an opportunity to plan accordingly. Third, NSERC should clarify its objectives with respect to the nature and level of support it provides for the research and tools and instruments program that enable researchers to carry out leading edge research funded by the Discovery Research Program and other NSERC programs. NSERC should also revisit the RTI budget in order to enable the program to meet the needs of the community. Fourth, they suggested that NSERC should consider separating the management of the funding for individual mathematics and statistics discovery grants from the management of the funding for institutes provided by CTRMS. Fifth, NSERC should clarify its vision and develop a comprehensive framework and guidelines that communicate how NSERC intends to provide ongoing support to research institutes in Canada, including the potential of expanding to other fields of research. Moreover, in order to improve accountability and assess impacts, NSERC should implement a more rigorous monitoring and reporting framework for the institutes that it supports. And lastly, NSERC should pursue the implementation of its EDI principles as they apply to activities funded through the Discovery Research Program. So this includes, among other things, continuing to collect and analyze new broader data to better understand the participation of all underrepresented groups, continuing to provide the required support to both the grant applicants and reviewers to ensure that the activities they undertake with the support of the Discovery Research Program reflects these principles. So NSERC management actions and program refinements are in development as described in the management action plan on our website. NSERC would like to extend its thanks to the research community for its valuable participation in this assessment. Okay, so with regards to the 6th recommendation, I'll just read to you first the tri-agency statement. So the tri-agency is committed to excellence in research and research training. We believe that achieving a more equitable, diverse, and inclusive Canadian research enterprise is essential to creating the excellent, innovative, and impactful research necessary to advance knowledge and understanding and to respond to local, national, and global challenges. Excuse me. So to help realize this goal, the tri-agency has developed 2 objectives which aim to ensure that the access to research support and participation in the research enterprise are fair and equitable. I'll give you a second to look that over. So at NSERC specifically, this is accomplished in a number of ways, including the integration of EDI into program requirements, the development of new policies, and required training for staff and reviewers. For example, NSERC has introduced a pilot for primary caregivers following the birth or adoption of a child who are eligible for maternity or parental leave but decline it. They may be eligible for a 1-year grant extension with funds. Also, grant holders who plan to take family-related leave or medical leave may be eligible for a grant extension with funds for up to 2 years. And students and postdoctoral fellows who are supported by NSERC grants are eligible may receive up to 12 months of paid maternity or parental leave from NSERC. So in order to better guide our policies, data is collected from the self-identification section of applications, as I mentioned before. This was collected here from the most recent DG competition. I will note that it is encouraging to see that the percentage of applications and the percentage of awards for each designated group are fairly close. And just a bit more information on that. The collection of self-identification data is driven by the Government of Canada's commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion in the federal research enterprise. So the tri-agencies made changes to the collection of self-ID data in order to respond to the Canada Research Coordinating Committee's work plan, requirements embedded in Budget 2018, and a recommendation provided in Canada's Fundamental Science Review, the Naylor Report. Furthermore, as we just discussed, the tri-agencies have developed a tri-agency equity, diversity, and inclusion action plan with a commitment to collecting self-ID data from applicants, members of panels, and external reviewers. While the granting agencies already collected information on some identity factors, it was incomplete, collected in different ways, and lacked comparability. The objective here is to collect data in a standardized way in order to establish a baseline and to track, monitor, report on, and inform decisions to increase EDI within the research community. So please know that self-ID information is not shared with reviewers. It's collected for the purposes of program operations, which include the recruitment of external individuals for merit review processes where applicable, and planning, performance measurement and monitoring, evaluation, as well as audits. It may also be used in aggregate to report to the government or to the public. Self-identification information will be reported in a form that is aggregate to ensure protection of the identity of any individual. In order to improve data collection, the granting agencies have agreed to harmonize their data collection by using the same questions and categories of responses, some of which are closely aligned with the way similar data collected by Statistics Canada. And finally, before we move on, a little bit more detail about the questions asked for the self-ID data collection. So it should be noted that the age question here, specifically asking for the date of birth, was added as a recommendation from Statistics Canada in order to enable comparisons between data sets when permission is granted and for the purposes of analysis. The gender question prompts the user to indicate the identity or term that best describes them at the present time. The question does not ask about the sex assigned at birth or the sexual orientation. The Indigenous question asks the user if they identify as an Indigenous person. The question is about personal identity, not legal status or registration. If the person chooses yes under the visible minority question, then they're asked to select the options that they identify with. I won't read off the full list of options for you. And with regards to the I prefer not to answer option, choosing to self-identify or not will have no consequences for an application. In funding opportunities where the agency may offer special consideration for members or a designated equity group, applicants will be asked to provide their consent separately to use their self-identification information for that purpose. So in November of 2019, NSERC, along with several other Canadian funding agencies, signed on to DORA, the Declaration on Research Assessment, which aims to change the culture of research assessment. NSERC has received a number of recommendations, many of which we were already actively encouraging, but these include not using journal-based metrics as a surrogate measure of the quality of research, being explicit about the criteria used in our evaluations, encouraging members to consider the quality of the scientific content in papers versus using publication metrics or journal identity, and considering the value and impact of all research outputs, including data sets and software. So as a signatory to DORA, NSERC is committed to excellence in research funding and to ensuring that a wide range of research results and outcomes are valued as part of the review process. Okay, and with that, on to our COVID-19 response. So program updates can be found on our website. We are continuing to monitor and make adjustments to deadlines as necessary. The federal government provided $291.6 million to the federal granting councils in order to extend expiring federal graduate research scholarships and postdoctoral fellowships, as well as to supplement existing federal research grants that support students, such as the Discovery Grant. So on May 29th, it was announced that eligible students and postdoc researchers whose support was ending between March and August 2020 would have their scholarship or fellowship extended by an additional 4 months. And on June 4th, it was also announced that additional funding would be provided to research grant holders to continue supporting trainee and research support personnel. And this support was commensurate with an average level of support that they would have received over a 3-month period. After that, it was announced that all active discovery grants would be offered a 1-year extension with funds at their current funding level. This extends to subatomic physics for the individual, group, and major resource grants, as well as the Northern Research Supplements and the Discovery Development Grant. NSERC and SSHRC grants ending between February 1st, 2020 and March 31st, 2021 are also eligible for a 1-year extension in time. This applies to all grants, even if they have already received their automatic 1-year extension. This extension, while unfunded, allows grantees to continue spending residual grant funds. NSERC has also introduced several funding opportunities that are directly related to the COVID-19 pandemic. This includes the Emerging Infectious Diseases Modeling Initiative, the Canadian 2019 Novel Coronavirus Rapid Research Funding Opportunity, the College and Community Innovation Program, as well as Alliance COVID-19 grants. More information can be found through these links. I can send this presentation to you afterwards, Adele, if you want to share that. I would note that at this point, calls for applications for these opportunities have already closed. For the Emerging Infectious Diseases Modeling Initiative, and we have passed the expression of interest deadline, but the full application deadline is coming up on December 18th. And finally, in addition to supporting researchers directly, NSERC is supporting research staff through the Canada Research Continuity Emergency Fund. So $450 million has been provided to help Canada's academic research community during the pandemic. This provides wage support, helps to maintain essential research-related activities, and will help ramp research operations back up once physical distancing measures are lifted. These funds are received by universities as block grants and is administered by the Tri-Agency Institutional Program Secretariat. More information on this can be found through the link at the bottom of the page here. Okay, and that's the end of our presentation. So we're ready to open up to questions, if there are any.
Thank you, Jean-Marc. If you have questions, please raise your hand and I'll unmute you so you can ask the question. And as I just wanted to also reiterate that we have scheduled, I haven't announced it yet, a webinar on January 14th, specifically on the Alliance program. So we'll be able to, I'll be announcing that in the next week or so to put it in your calendars. Are there any questions from anyone? It's a very quiet group. One of the questions that came up, and I'll ask you, is Jean-Marc, is if we can have a copy of the presentation afterwards. Great, thank you.
Yeah,
Bettina, you have a question.
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation. A very nice overview. You had one slide that referred to the evaluation of the NSERC evaluation. And so there were a couple of points given up. And one of the points was the question about the differences in average grant sizes across the different groups. Number two, explain the rationale for DG funding difference. I don't know, maybe I missed it. Did you come to that in your talk? Is there any activity on this? Because there are differences between the different groups, evaluation groups in terms of average grant size, correct?
Yes, yeah, there certainly are. I didn't touch on it in my talk, and I don't have any updates on that. But this is something that is known to NSERC, and it's something we do actively trying to reduce those. But given that it's a recommendation received from this, it's definitely receiving higher attention now, I'm sure.
Was this, you split up the math, so math is also one that is a little bit notorious, known that have a relative low average, just as a computer science is, as far as I know. Traditionally has had lower averages, that they kind of separate some funding there, because was this already in the same context of this, or was this really a completely orthogonal recommendation?
So if I could just jump
Go
in,
ahead.
Jean-Marc, if you don't mind, and you could add on. I guess I could say I didn't fully understand the second part of your question, to be honest, but I guess what I could say is we haven't yet published our formal response to these recommendations yet. So we are aware of the differences across different disciplines, and so we are working on formulating a formal response to these questions.
So is NSERC then planning to also address them? And do they have concrete steps? For example, if it's found there is no rationale, and they would try to move forward to reducing the discrepancies there, of whether there would be then a discrete time plan of how this could be accomplished.
So all very good points and good questions. To be honest, I don't think we're there yet. Right now, with the situation we're all living, we've been focusing on more pressing priorities. The big one is for us to be able to even just deliver on this year's Discovery Grants competition. Everyone at NSERC is still working virtually, so that also hinders some of the discussions that would have taken place otherwise, and really a lot of our effort in the past months has been dealing with the COVID situation. So those are good points, good questions. I've taken note, and I would hope that if, depending on the formal response that NSERC publishes after looking into this in a lot more detail and looking at the data, that if we determine that there is some sort of issue, that we would put in place, as you say, a plan to rectify anything. Right now, what I can say is that with the new funds that the government committed to Discovery in 2018, I believe, those funds have been used as sort of to top up different groups to ensure that regardless of the budget pressures, we're maintaining as best as we can consistent grant levels from one year to the next within the discipline, which is currently our priority.
Okay, thank you.
We have a couple of questions here. The questions are starting to come in. I'll ask the ones that are on the Q&A first. From Tony Tang, do we have a sense of whether DG funding levels will stay the same in the coming years on account of the federal budget and the COVID-19 situation?
So I guess none of us have a crystal ball, so we can't predict anything. But the way NSERC's budget for discovery works is we do have this base funding. I can't predict the future, but we do have this core budget. So will we get new funds in the immediate future? To be honest, I would be surprised. Historically, we haven't seen cuts to our program's budgets either per se. There are some exceptions, but so I think we're fairly safe, and we can be confident more or less that as came out of this report, that the discovery portfolio is important, is having impact, and must continue. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. But as I say, we don't have a crystal ball to predict the future, and unfortunately.
Thank you. Another question from the Q&A. Thank you for the presentation. I wanted to ask about the NSERC RTI. Not sure if I missed it, but what was the success rate for RTI?
I can pull that up here. I believe it was, success rate was 28%, I believe. So specifically for the Computer Science, Math, and Stats Selection Committee, the success rate was 28% in the last competition. And overall, it was the same, 28%.
Thank you. Lada, you have a question. I just unmuted you. You're still muted, but go ahead. There you go.
I'm unmuted now? Okay.
You're
good.
unmuted, yes.
Hi. Yes, I had a question about the COVID-related extension that NSERC gave to discovery grant holders. Do we know how many researchers extended their grants this year? The people who were up for renewal, in this year's competition?
I'm not aware of the number. Jean-Marc, are you?
Yeah, I don't remember offhand. I hesitate to give a number off the top of my head, but we do know roughly. I think no, sorry, I don't know off the top of my head what that.
That's fine, no problem. Thanks. Yeah.
So we can look into that and get back to you. Perhaps we could let Adele know, and she could forward that on.
That'd be great. Thank you. I'll forward it on to the whole chairs group. Hassam, you have a question. I've just unmuted you, or I'm trying to unmute you.
And I accepted the unmute.
There
Great.
you go.
So thanks for the presentation, and thanks Adele for arranging for this. I have a question relating to an earlier question about the level of funding. Computer science is known to rely on many international students, and the funding level for these students is usually higher because of tuition and the like, and also the cost of supporting students just keeps going up. So is this being discussed, considered in NSERC, or how does it go?
Very good question. I'm not involved in any of those discussions if they are taking place, but I would like to remind everybody that I am fairly new in my position as well in this role. With that said, I think the issue goes well beyond computer science. I think you could say the same thing for many, if not every other discipline as well, where there are a large number of foreign students as well, and tuition's higher. And so I think it's a bigger issue than just within the computer science discipline.
Does that answer your question, Hassan?
I guess, yeah. I'll take it for now, and I guess we'll keep asking.
Thank you. There's a question here from Duina Precup on the Q&A. Has the proportion of supplements that comes to 1507 decreased compared to other groups?
So when you're saying proportion of supplements, are you referring to what specifically, the discovery accelerators?
Duina, I've just unmuted you, so if you'd like to respond.
Yes, it's about the discovery accelerators. So the number seems comparable, but the proportion, if you were to normalize by the total amount of accelerators awarded, seems smaller. Maybe I'm wrong about this.
Okay. In last year's competition, and Jean-Marc, you could correct me if I'm wrong since I wasn't there, but I believe in last year's competition and competitions past, the number of awards is proportional to the, I guess, number of applications. So the number of awards in any given year is really relative to the number of applications received by any given discovery grant.
So this is going back to this question of inequality among the different evaluation groups in terms of the amounts of funding. At the time that I was on the committee, computer science had relatively more of these accelerator supplements, in part to sort of correct for the fact that the funding bins are significantly lower, and to allow people who are really on an upward trajectory to continue that. And so if this has been changed, that does affect the distribution of funding, I think, across the disciplines. Might be something to keep in mind.
Thank you. I will look into that, but you kind of jogged my memory a little bit, going back to my previous time in Discovery Grant. Originally, when the Discovery Grant accelerators were created, there was a certain proportion of them that were set aside for targeted research areas, and computer science fell in those targeted areas. So they received an additional, I guess, quantity of supplements on top of what they received just based on the normalized distribution based on applications received. So I don't believe that's still the case, but Jean-Marc, you could, yeah, so Jean-Marc is saying that that's no longer the case. There's no longer these targeted areas where additional supplements were going. So I think that might be the difference that you're referring to from previous years and your previous service on the committee.
Yes, this is probably the difference. Thank you.
Okay.
Ali, you have a question. I'll just unmute you. Go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, so I had a question. Probably I missed that. So in the presentation, you mentioned that some NSERC discovery, the NSERC discovery grants, some people got extension for 1 year. So I'm just wondering, like, who got that 1 year extension? All the recipient or some particular recipient?
So essentially, everyone that was scheduled to renew their grant this year was invited to extend it by 1 year with at the same level, so that they didn't have to worry about going through competition and needing to prepare an application when dealing with so many other issues or challenges. So it was specific to the cohort that was set to apply this year.
Okay, so the recipient whose grant was ending this year.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I can just add on to that.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, the priority, because of everything else going on, the priority for this year was to offer it to those people whose grants were expiring this year. But the plan is to offer it to over the next 4 years or so, one full cycle, to applicants whose grants expire in those coming years.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
There's a question here from Marcia Chechik. Following up on the previous question, do you have data on the distribution of DAS awards with regard to gender and other EDI factors?
I don't offhand. I'd suggest you potentially look in the statistics package. It may be there. If it's not, then I could certainly see if there's any data we have on that I could provide. But yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
No, that's fine. Go ahead, Mark. Sure, Mark.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I could look into it, speak to, yeah, see if there's any data. And sorry, this was for the DAS program?
Yes, the DAS program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just to add to that, so the collection of this sort of EDI data is a relatively new thing at NSERC. So obviously we wouldn't be able to go back historically and do a thorough analysis of that. So keep that in mind. And something else, I guess I'll take the opportunity to say is that I'm happy that at NSERC we recently a position was created. So now we have a chief data officer within our group. Well, not our group, but within the organization. So we're hoping to see some changes and pushes forward for us to be able to better leverage some of our data. And for example, what you'll see more and more of in the coming years, I think, is these interactive dashboards on our website, where you'll be able to go through the results of various things and slice the data any way that you choose to be able to get a sense of any sort of information you're looking for. So I'm happy and excited about that in the future.
Thank you both. Any other questions, either in the Q&A or if anyone would like to raise their hand? And gentlemen, you did say you were able to provide us with the slides? Great, thank you. Okay, well, if there are no other questions, I'm going to remind everyone that I will set up the webinar for January 14th for the Alliance program, where that will be the main topic, and you'll be able to sign up. And I want to thank Kevin and Jean-Marc today for their time and for all of this information. And again, if anyone has any other questions to follow up, please let me know and I can communicate directly, or obviously you can contact Kevin and Jean-Marc directly. And I want to thank everyone for their time today, and I will let everyone know when this recording is up on our website. So thanks everyone, take care.
All right, thank you all very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, bye-bye.